Welcome back, Truth Seeker. January 6, 2025. The breaking news. The first bird flu death in the U.S., and it is in the state of Louisiana. Remember, this is where they were monitoring the mutation. The severely ill people from bird flu. And as we talked about then, and as we'll talk about again, if you're new here, Gematria, the Kabbalistic practice of coding numbers into words. You must learn this practice to see through the ritualism in the news. We just talked about this exact same number pattern with the tragedy in Louisiana on New Year's Day in New Orleans. The police chief was the police chief for exactly 61 weeks before the shooting in Louisiana. And as you can see in Gematria, when you run the alphabetic order forwards, Louisiana equals 38. When you run it in reverse, it equals 61. For the record, in the same cipher that Louisiana equals 38, so does New Year's, and that 38 is a very deadly number. But here we are on a date that can be written 6/1 like 61, and we get this story out of Louisiana. And 5 years ago at this time, the foundation was being laid for the coronavirus or the COVID-19 pandemic. 19. Again, 19 is a very important number. It represents chaos, but it's also important to the 19-year cycles of the moon. And there's a lot of 19 in patterns in history. C19 came 19 years after 9/11 and the 19 hijackers, two events that reshaped the world, impacted a lot of people's lives. Anyhow, 19 years ago was 2006, the year of the bird flu epidemic. So here we are 19 years later, big bird flu scare again. But notice, pandemic in Louisiana, both 38. You might recall at the beginning of C19, the whistleblower died. And he died on the 38th day of the year. The C19 whistleblower out of Wuhan died on the 38th day of the year. We covered that then. 38 is a number of death. And in this story, they're reporting that the person who died is older than 65. That's how they're reporting it. Older than 65. Here it is. The first person to have a severe case of H5N1 bird flu in the United States has died, according to the Louisiana Department of Health. The person who was over 65 and reportedly had underlying medical conditions was hospitalized with the flu after exposure to a backyard flock of birds. Very brief story, but this should remind you of Event 201, the pandemic simulation that took place October 18th, 2019. In that simulation, 65 million people died, and we talked about how Bill and Melinda Gates were co-sponsors, and the simulation was 65 days from Melinda Gates' birthday. But again, pandemic has that 65 value. If you're new here, there are 4 base ciphers of the English language. They're elementary. It's the alphabetic order. A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, up to Z is 26. That's where pandemic equals 65. The alphabetic order with numerology applied, that's where pandemic is 38, like Louisiana. And then there's also the reverse alphabetic order and the reverse alphabetic order with numerology. Reverse with numerology is where Louisiana is 61, like how today's date can be written 6/1, 6th of January. And don't forget, when you run pandemic in reverse, it's 151, like how in 2020, the first confirmed case in the U.S. from China, which was the first confirmed case in the world outside of China, was on the 15th day of the first month, 15/1, like pandemic's also 151. But yeah, 38, big death number. They got to start in Louisiana. Big deadly story to start the year in Louisiana. And then you had a one later that day in Las Vegas in front of Trump Tower, whereas New Orleans is Trumpet Town. But remember, they had to say that guy who blew up the Cybertruck, he was from Colorado, the 38th state, which also equals 38 like New Year's. And again, his name equaled 369, like the Tesla quote about knowing the magnificence of 3, 6, and 9. I'm talking about the guy who blew up the Cybertruck. Again, you learn this code, you'll see through the ritualism. Also, remember, everything on New Year's was encoded 45. New Orleans, Cybertruck, Amazura, that was the club that got shot up in Queens in Trump's neighborhood to end the night. But notice, bird flu, 45 as well. 2025 has a square root of 45, so what a year for bird flu to come back. And in light of the title, Bird Flu Death, first bird flu death, today's the 56th day of the Superior General's Age. Huge number with the Jesuits, who gave us the calendar and the language, have huge influence in the world of media, government, medicine. Uh-oh, I hear a sweet girl waking up. I got to go get her. But it's the 56th day, his age, bird flu death. Again, like always, news by the numbers. And just like we were telling you in the time of C-19, follow those Jesuits and you'll follow the crumbs to the perpetrators. Till next